I did send out an announcement about your test with the info. It just went out a few minutes ago, so you should have that. This test you do not have to use honor lock, and so you'll have to enter that password that's in that announcement. You will have 4 hours. You can use any notes that you have written down. I just want you to do it yourself, and you will still have to upload your work. But so just a little bit more flexibility on this one. That's why I didn't put it in honor lock. Any questions about it? There are, I wrote it on there, I believe it is 16 questions, and some of them have multiple parts. They all came out of homework questions, so I pulled them all out of the homework pool. And I put 4 hours. I don't think you'll need 4 hours, but I put 4 hours. All right, let's go ahead and start with section 4.6. This section is quadratic or higher inequalities. So just a polynomial inequality is a better term than quadratic. You do not solve these the same way as you do linear inequalities. With linear, remember, you just isolate the variable, and you have to watch out, though, if you divide by a negative, it flips your symbol. That piece is still going to be true. So with the polynomial inequality, you have to find first what's called the critical values. And actually before that, you want your function on the left side and 0 on the other side. It has to be that way. You want f of x on the left-hand side, and it doesn't matter what your symbols are, but you want 0 on the other side. That's your format. So we have that format. You want to find your boundary points, and sometimes I call these critical values. They're the same thing. And to do that, you just set this piece equal to 0 and solve. So if we set this equal to 0 instead of less than or equal to, this one is nice because it's already factored for you. So you'll just set each piece equal to 0. So this one will give you -9. This one will give you 7. So those are our critical values. We're going to put those on a number line. You have to put them in order. So 7 is lower. It'll be to the left. And, whoops, it's -9, not... -9 is lower than 7. Right. And we're going to pick test values in each of these regions broken up by those boundary points. You want something that is not that point. So here I'm going to pick a -10. In this section I'm going to pick 0. Anytime you're allowed to pick 0, 0 is a great choice because it makes the math easy. And over here I will choose 8. Now, we actually can take a little shortcut because all we care about is the sign. If it's less than 0, it's going to be negative. If it's greater than 0, it'll be positive. So what we're going to look at is the factors. So x plus 9, x minus 7, and then the combination of those. And we're going to see when we plug in that test value what the sign will be. So for our first one, we're going to plug in -10. So -10 plus 9. We don't care about the answer. We just want to know, does it give us positive or negative? It gives negative. -10 minus 7 is going to give you negative. You don't have to plug into the last one, just multiply. 2 negatives give you a positive. So even number of negatives, positive, odd number of negatives give you negative. Right, then we go to the next test point, so 0. So if we plug it into x plus 9, 0 plus 9 is positive. 0 minus 7 is negative. And into both, just look here, You're multiplying, you only have one negative, that's odd, so this piece is negative. In your third region, plug in your 8. 8 plus 9 is 17, that is positive. 8 minus 7 is 1, that is positive. When you multiply two positives, you get a positive. Now, go back to your symbol, and you want the section that is less than or equal to 0. So you want this part in here that's negative. On your number line, it's going to be here. For your endpoints, whether there's an equal underneath or not. So this is an equal, it will be brackets. And when you have to graph them on there, it will be a closed circle. We do have to graph on this one. So interval notation is going to be -9 to 7. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put the graph on here. The first thing you need to do is click the closed circle. You have to put the endpoints on first. So -9 and 7. Then we're going to click this piece so we connect in between. Go to one of the endpoints. Oh, I have to use the mouse. Sorry. On that side, I have to use the mouse. And you don't want to go over like this one almost did because it'll mark it wrong. Now, it'll mark me wrong on the first one because I didn't type it in, but that's okay. But it said my graph was right. Any questions there? All right. So that is basically how you do it. The other ones, the extra work is going to be because you have to factor. And so we'll look at question 2. If x squared minus 12.5x less than 0. All right, so it is a quadratic inequality. We want to solve this equal to 0. So you can factor out an x. It has a GCF. And then you set each one equal to 0 and solve. So this one will just give you 0. This one, it's okay that it has a decimal. It's just going to give you 12.5. So those will be our two boundary points. So 0 and 12.5. And we're going to test those three regions. So we need something lower than 0. I would probably pick -1. Between 0 and 12.5, maybe a 1. And over here, a 13. So we're going to use these pieces. So we'll use x itself. We'll use x minus 12.5. And then we'll do the combo of those, which we really don't have to do. We can just use our combination there. So, first we'll test -1. So -1 into x gives us negative. You care if you get positive or negative. -1 here. So -1 minus 12.5, that's going to be more negative. Multiplying two negatives gives you positive. Plugging in a 1. 1 into x is going to give you back +1. 1 minus 12.5 is a negative. Multiplying a positive and a negative only has one negative. That's odd, so it's negative. And our third region, I said we'd use 13. So 13 into x is going to give you positive. 13 minus 12.5 will also give you positive. Multiplying two positives gives you positive. Check your inequality symbol in the original. So less than, and so less than 0, we want the negative section again, which is in here. This time there is no equals underneath, so it will be parentheses. So it is from 0 to 12.5. There we go. And on our graph, we'll pick the 0 with the open circle. And 12.5, I didn't practice this one before. Hopefully that'll work. Just kind of picked in between. Then our connecting piece. And we'll submit. It will still mark me partially wrong because I didn't answer the first part. But the graph was good. Right, we'll do number 3. Number 3 is a nice standard problem. You want to make sure you can do number 3. And so it is quadratic inequality. So first we will find the boundary points by setting this equal to 0. So you'll have to factor different signs. And you can use 9 and 2 here. We want a minus 7, so minus 9 plus 2. So this one will give us x equals negative 2 because you subtract 2. This one will add a 9, so it will be x equals positive 9. So those are our critical values, negative 2 and 9. We'll find test points, so maybe a negative 3, 0, and 10. And we'll use our factors rather than the whole thing. And this last one is just the combo of those. I'm going to write combo. That means both of them, right, together, because we don't really have to plug into it. All right, and we're just going to figure out the signs, whether we get positive or negative. So we're plugging in negative 3. Negative 3 plus 2 gives us negative. Negative 3 minus 9 gives us negative. Multiplying two negatives is positive. Plugging in 0. 0 plus 2, positive. 0 minus 9, negative. Multiplying with one negative is negative. And 10 plus 2 is positive. 10 minus 9 is positive. And multiplying two positives gives a positive. All right, this one also is less than 0. Maybe soon we'll get a greater than. So we want the one that gives us negative, which means this one is also this middle section. There is no equals underneath, so it will be parentheses. And open circles on your graph. So we'll do the endpoints, negative 2, 9, then do the line, and we'll submit. So you guys doing okay with this? All right, let's see if we can get to some that have more on them. We'll do this one. And when you start to solve here, I would factor out the negative. Anytime there's a negative on the first term, because it'll make it easier to factor. So we're going to first set it equal to 0. And then we're going to factor on this side. But a negative leading coefficient I don't like. So I'm going to factor out a -1. That leaves x squared. It's going to change all your signs. Minus 5x minus 14. And I actually, I did that up here. I should probably backtrack and fix that. I did it before I went to equals. Because when I divided it out, it's going to flip. Because I haven't done anything else with it. I just factored out a -1. So I'm going to divide that -1 out so it doesn't mess up my sign scheme on this side. But it's going to make this inequality symbol flip. So now I have x squared minus 5x minus 14. It's going to be less than 0. We're going to look at equals to 0 and factor and solve. So different signs, and we can use 7 and 2. So if this one equals 0, will be x equals -2. This one will give x equals 7. And that up there was really the only piece that's different that I wanted you to see on this one. Because it seemed like there was a negative to factor out in several problems, and it does make your inequality flip. All right, so our pieces x plus 2, x minus 7, and your combo. And we need test points, so we need -3. Anything you could pick over here. It doesn't have to be -3. I'm going to pick 0 and 8. So -3 plus 2 gives us negative. -3 minus 7 is negative. Multiplying two negatives gives us positive. Put 0 in. 0 plus 2 is positive. 0 minus 7 is negative. Multiplying with one negative is negative. And put in 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. That's positive. 8 minus 7 is positive. Multiplying two positives gives a positive. All right? And we want to use this piece here after we made the change. So we want less than 0 again. We're going to want the middle piece. And there is no equals. So it will be from -2 to 7. We'll just check. And I'm going to skip the graph on that one. Is that okay? If anybody wants it, make sure you speak up. Okay, very good. All right, 5 and 6 are a little different. They gave you kind of a big jump here. And don't worry about that being marked wrong. I hit submit when I didn't mean to hit submit before. So let's go back to blue. So 5. And we have 6 plus x plus 2x squared. It's less than or equal to 0. Right, so I changed this one around, switched my order to descending order. And you can try to factor. Some will factor, some will not. This one will not factor if you try it. You can go through all the choices. It will not factor. And what we're trying to find are those boundary points so that we can check it. So our other choice then for a quadratic equation would be to use the quadratic formula. So we'll try that. So A is 2, B is 1, and C is 6. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So clean up. Negative 1 plus or minus. This is 1. 4 times 2 is 8 times 6 is 48 over 4. And what we're going to get here is an I. I know that because this is going to end up negative. So if we have an I, it's not going to show up on a number line. So we have to think about something else. So what I did, so I'm going to go ahead and write here, we have no critical values that we could find because of the I. That's the bad piece. So I'm going to pull up my calculator and have a look at this one with you. The calculator is nice on these to understand. And so I'm going to type it in, and we can go with descending order. So I have y equals 2x to the second plus x plus 6 and let's graph. Right. So our original inequality says less than or equal to 0. Your graph is up here. There is none of it. This is your 0. There's none of it below. It's all above. So this one is going to be no solution. None of the graph is below the 0. And our critical values would have been the x-intercepts, right? But we couldn't find any. And that was a clue. Okay, you're going to have to do something else. This one's a little weird. So this one was less than or equal to 0. So there is no solution. And we got that from the calculator. If instead the inequality had been turned the other way, we would have had all real numbers because all of the graph would have been above. So it would depend on your symbol there, which of these special ones you get. So this one should be, there is no solution, and that's the correct answer. We'll see if I can change mine to green. I still didn't like that. Oh, I didn't write in here. There's nothing to write in there. Oh, I didn't pick it here. Okay, all right, got it. Right, and we'll also do question 6. It's a special solution also. But we'll see what happens. And I just went to the calculator to begin with because this didn't look to me like anything I wanted to factor, and I was remembering that last one. So let's just do that because it looks hard to factor. So let's go to calculator and put this in. And I left the negative on it. I didn't even change the descending order. Let's say graph. Okay, this one is all down here. And this one says this function is less than or equal to 0. All of it is. So we're just going to say by the calculator. And that would be perfectly fine to say in your answer, all is below 0. So to show that, we can say negative infinity to positive infinity. Any question there with those two? Right. Then we'll go back to one that looks harder to factor, but it does factor. And they did a few of these where they have a GCF. If you take the GCF out, they're not bad. All right, so I would switch to descending order if I'm going to try to factor this. And you're factoring it to get your critical values. What I notice is there is a 6 in every single piece. So that's good. That ends up making it easy. So take the 6 out. You're doing GCF. And then you can divide the 6 out. It's not going to matter because it's positive, so nothing is going to flip. So, and it would not affect your signs in our tests being a positive. So we can just ignore the 6, or you can go through the step and divide it out. So we're going to factor this piece, which factors easily. Can use 4 and 2. Make sure you get the right ones with the right signs, because that would give us positive 2. All right, so our boundary points are going to be x equals negative 4 and x equals 2. And then it will be just like before. So that factoring piece was the only thing different. This will be our combo. And so something over here, negative 5, something in here, and here. So negative 5 plus 4 is negative. Negative 5 minus 2 is negative. Multiplying two negatives gives you positive. Plugging in 0. 0 plus 4 is positive. 0 minus 2 is negative. Multiplying here gives you a negative. And plug in 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. That's a positive. 3 minus 2 is 1. That's a positive. And 2 positives gives a positive. Right. This one was also less than 0, so we want this section. We'll find one in a minute that gives us the other sections. Okay, there is no equals underneath, so this will be our answer. And we'll just have a look there. I'm going to skip number 8. It will be the same way. The only extra thing in it is you have to move this negative 18x to the other side. And then you have a g, so add it to both sides so that you get a 0 on the right hand side. And then you'll have a GCF of 3. Then it will work just like 7. Let's go ahead to number 9. So this one's already in factored form, which is very nice. You do need to get rid of that negative that's on the left because it would mess up our scheme. Of looking at the test values. So we will divide out that negative, and it's going to make your inequality symbol flip. So we don't want the -1. If it's just a plain constant without a sign, it's okay to leave. All right, so we have x plus 1, x minus 6, x minus 4, and now it is less than or equal to 0. This one's going to give you different sections, though, than before because we have more pieces. So this should be -1, 6, and 4. And make sure you're in order. So my 4 should be in here. Pick some test values. So below -1, we can try -2. Between -1 and 4, let's try 0. And we can try 5. And you also have to pick out here. So you have 4 regions this time. And so our factors, we have x plus 1, x minus 6, x minus 4, and then the combo of multiplying all of those. Right, so then we do our test values into each one. So -2 into x plus 1 will give us negative. -2 minus 6 will give us negative. -2 minus 4 will give us negative. When you multiply 3 negatives, that's odd, gives you negative. Right, plug in 0. 0 plus 1 is positive. 0 minus 6 is negative. 0 minus 4 is negative. Multiplying 2 negatives is even, so that gives you a positive. Right, plug in 5. 5 plus 1 is 6, that's positive. 5 minus 6 is negative. 5 minus 4 is positive. And we're multiplying with 1 negative is negative. Then we'll do 7. So 7 plus 1 gives us 8, which is positive. 7 minus 6 gives us positive. 7 minus 4 gives us positive. Multiplying with no negatives gives you positive. All right, we want less than or equal to 0. So we want these negative sections. We'll have 2 this time. This one, there is an equals, so you'll use a bracket. And then this one. And when we put that in, we'll go from negative infinity to -1 with a bracket, union 4 to 6 with a bracket. And I'm just going to check it. All right, so we're good there. We'll do the graph. All right, so I want -1 on there, and it needs a solid circle. I want 4 and 6, and they need solid circles. And then I'll do my line. So this one, I want it to go all the way to the end. So I need to start here and eventually it'll get the arrow. This one we're just going in between, and just make sure you don't go past that dot, but get all the way up to it, right? And so we're going to submit. It'll mark me wrong because I didn't answer the first piece, but this one gave green. Any question there? So we had more sections in this piece. We'll have a look at number 10. All right, first thing is you need to get in a proper order. So you need to move these two terms to the other side. So it would be less than or equal to 0. So we're going to keep the negative b squared. We're going to add 13. This was cubed. I copied wrong. This one should be cubed. Add 13b squared. Subtract 42b. And this is now going to be less than or equal to 0. And I left the b off if you were copying me. Okay, so what we'll do first is take out a GCF, and we're going to take that negative with it. So we're going to take a negative b. That's going to leave b squared minus 13b plus 42 less than or equal to 0. We're okay with the b over here because that is going to give us one of our boundary points. The negative is the issue that would mess up our sign thing. So I'm going to divide that negative off, but I'm keeping the b. And remember, when you do that, it's going to change your symbol. So over here, I'm going to have left b times this, which I'll factor. And now my symbol is going the other way. So split your b's. This says do like signs both minus. And 6 and 7 should work here. So our critical values, this one gives you 0 itself. So 0, set this equal to 0, and the answer will be 6. And this one will be 7. So 0, 6, and 7. And I really need a little more space. All right, so we have to include the b here, the b minus 6, the b minus 7, and I also need that other end. So we'll test at 8 here. The combo. All right, so now we're going to do the sign thing again and just get positive or negative. And Mrs. H made a mistake. Well, I didn't write the test values yet. You don't want to put these in for your test values. I got it too close to that line. All right, so we have to go lower than 0, so a -1 would be fine. Here we'll use a +1. Here we can use 6.5 and maybe an 8. So those are the things we're going to plug in and see if we get positive or negative. So -1 into b will give us negative. -1 into this one, -1 minus 6 is going to be negative. -1 minus 7 is negative. Multiplying 3 negatives is odd. It gives you negative. Right. Plug in 1. 1 into b gives you positive. 1 minus 6 gives you negative. 1 minus 7 is negative. Multiplying 2 negatives gives you positive. All right, plug in 6.5. Well, that's positive. 6.5 minus 6 is positive. 6.5 minus 7 is negative. You're multiplying here and you have one negative. That's odd, so it's negative. And then we'll do 8. 8 into b will give us positive. 8 minus 6 is positive. 8 minus 7 is positive. Multiplying all positives gives you positive. This time, we wanted greater than 0, so you have to pick the positive sections. And so this one and this end, we did have an equals underneath. So we're here. For our answer, we'll have 0 to 6, union 8 to infinity. And you can just look at the answer here. We're good on these pieces. Remember on infinity to, whoa, what did Miss H do? Miss H made an error. I put the test value here instead of the end on that one. So let's fix that. Should have been 7. Make sure you get the parentheses on the infinity. So we can graph it. So 0, we need a solid. So 0 and 6 and 7. And then our graph piece says 0 to 6. We're going to connect. Oh, I have to use the mouse. Okay, and then 7. You should go all the way to the end until it makes the arrow. So it doesn't like my graph. Let's see what it says the answer is. 0 to 6, 7 to infinity. The only thing that I can see on that, because it left this box yellow, maybe I didn't get it all the way up against that point, because these are finicky on these graphs. It did give me the arrow at the end. And usually when you get the arrow, that's far enough. So we have the right pieces. I think it's just being finicky there. Right, we're doing okay for time. We can do 13 just to remind, 11, just to remind you about grouping, because that is what you're going to do on this one. Notice it also has a negative GCF on it. So we'll divide out that negative. So very similar to the last problem. And the only reason I picked it is just because we didn't do a grouping one. So it's a factoring review. All right, so everything is even. That's how you know to take out a GCF. And the leading coefficient is negative, so we'll take that out. That leaves us x cubed. Right, we took the negative out, so now it is plus 7x squared minus 8x minus 56. And you don't care about the 2 here. You can actually divide the whole piece out because this is not a variable. So you can divide by negative 2 on both sides. All it's going to do is flip your symbol. because 0 divided by -2 is still 0. So to get your critical values here, you'll use grouping because it's 4 terms. So we can take out an x squared, and that leaves x plus 7. On this one, let's see, 8 goes into 56, so we can take out a -8, and that leaves x. Now you took the negative out, so that's going to leave you a plus 7. You did get this piece that matches. Oh, this is coming out weird. Did I do anything wrong? Yes, you did, Mrs. H. Any of your algebra whiz is going to tell me what I did wrong? All right. I pulled the -2 out here just fine. I did the negative, but I didn't take the 2 out. Now, how did I know that happened? Well, when I got right here and I have x squared minus 8, that's not going to factor and it's not going to give me critical values. So that is how I knew I had an error. And I'm sorry for those of you who are copying. All right. So, -2 times -4 gives us 8, or divide -2 into 8, and -2 into 56. We'll use a calculator so Mrs. H doesn't mess up again. -28. Now we'll do grouping. So we have x squared, and it leaves x plus 7. We'll take a -4 because that's the leading piece in that group. So -4, and that leaves x. Your minus comes out, plus 7. You want those to match, otherwise it's not going to work. So we get x plus 7. The other piece, your missing pieces, gives you something else that will factor more. So you can have more critical values. Get x plus 2x minus 2. Difference is squares. And we are now greater than or equal to 0. So our test values are going to be, sorry, not our test values, our endpoints or boundary points, -2 and +2. So we are in order. -7 is the lowest, -2, +2, and you want to be over here. So we'll test a -8, we'll test a -3, test a 0, and test a 3. Then put your pieces, x plus 7, x plus 2, x minus 2, and the combo. Now you're going to play the sign game. -8 plus 7 is negative. -8 plus 2 is negative. -8 minus 2 is negative. Multiplying 3 negatives is odd gives you negative. All right. -3 plus 7 gives you positive. -3 plus 2 gives you negative. -3 minus 2 gives you negative. 2 negatives multiplied gives you positive. Plug in 0. 0 plus 7 is positive. 0 plus 2 is positive. 0 minus 2 is negative. 1 negative is odd, that's negative. So 3 plus 7 is 10, positive. 3 plus 2 is positive 5. 3 minus 2 is positive. All positives multiplied gives positive. All right, we wanted greater than 0, so we want these two sections, this one and this one. And our ends, brackets. So -7 to -2. union 2 to infinity. On the infinity, make sure you have parentheses. We'll try the graph on here again. Maybe I'll do better this time. So -7, -2, and +2, and color from here. I'm going to start on the dot and go to the dot. And this one I'm going to start on the dot and go, oops, start on the dot and go to the end. All right, hopefully it likes that this time. All right, I'm a little concerned about that. I wonder if it's because my screen is squishing it. We'll redo that. All right, so we put in -7, we put in -2, and we're going to put in +2. Here, and then we're here. I have no idea what's wrong with that. Does anybody see what's wrong with it? Because I didn't use the right number. Well, I didn't expect that error. I put 1 here. Should have been 2. All right, I had 2 in this piece. Sorry about that, guys. I was trying to make sure it wasn't anything weird with the input. All right. I wanted to make sure that you see 13 and 14 because they're going to be calculator more. We'll do 12 too. We'll do all 3 of these. These are faster. The calculator is really helpful on these, and you can use it on all those others too. It algebraically, it's easier on a bunch of them to find the boundary points, which you will need. But if it's a hard problem to factor, definitely I would go to the calculator. All right, so they're already giving us the graph on 12. We're going to solve it from the graph. And they want us to look at this inequality. All right, and we're going to move these over to the other side, so it'll be in the proper order. So we're going to add 2x squared. We're going to keep the 12x next, and we're going to add a 16, and that will be less than or equal to 0. You need 0 here to be able to use the graph because above or below the 0. So we want the part of the graph that's below 0. We want this piece down here, right? And this one you can see the critical values or boundary points nicely. So it is going to be -4. So between -4 and 2, and these are touching, and we had a equals there. So that is the answer without a ton of work. There you go. Let's try another calculator one. I'll just go down here to what we're going to look at. So we could find those critical values by factoring, but they already gave us the graph, right? And so we want the section of the graph that is above the 0. So this end out here is above 0. So from negative infinity to negative 2, and there is no equals underneath, so we will use a parentheses there. And then we want this piece, which is from 2 to 6, because it's the part that's above 0. So I use parentheses because of no equals. And they have parentheses. I'm going to skip. Well, we can do the graph. We have time because it's open circles this time. So open circle, negative 2, open circle 2, open circle 6, and this one goes this way, and between 2 and 6. Right, and it's going to mark me wrong for the top. Hopefully it marked me right for the graph this time. Okay. Miss H not doing so good with these graphs today. 2 to 6. Maybe I didn't touch right there. I hope they don't give you that hard a time. And it's not going to let me clear it. I must have already done that one a time. There's a little bit of white, so maybe I didn't get all the way to the edge on that. Sorry, guys. All right, and we will do the last one too. It has one thing different when you have your answers, because it has a root of multiplicity 2 here, where it touches and turns around, and the exponent of 2 is the clue there. So we have a fourth times x minus 2 times x plus 4 squared greater than or equal to 0. So we want the part that's above the 0, or equal to. That piece is important. So you're going to need this negative 4, but none of this, just where it's touching. So you're going to need negative 4, and then you're going to need this end, 2 to infinity. And this will be a union. The way you have to write this is you're going to do negative 4, comma, negative 4. And let's see if I can graph it right this time. All right, we'll just look in here. All right, there is your interval notation. We're doing good with that. And I'm just going to make this whole screen big so nothing is squished. We should be fine. Right, and I can graph it from there. So I need a solid circle on this one. I need a solid circle on the 2. I need a line from 2 to infinity. And that looks good to me. We'll see if they liked that answer. Oh, good. They like that graph, so. Okay. All right. I didn't pick any out from your review this time. I didn't have any questions because I thought this would take most of the time. If anybody has one you've looked at on the review, I would answer it. If not, we will just stop there instead. Make sure that you do look back to the announcement. So your test is not in honor lock, but when you start it, you have to finish it. It's not going to save in the middle and let you come back. But I did put plenty of time. I don't think it will take you that much time. But have your calculator ready. Any questions there? And then next week we have spring break. So even Monday is part of spring break. So you won't be able to get to the college anywhere on the college next week. You can still send me an email if I have a chance I can answer. I didn't plan to do a review on the review. If you have some questions specifically, I would be glad to do them. And that's probably why I got so many people here today to do that. Sorry about that, guys. So if you have some you want to see, send me an email and I'll do them. Don't send it to me on Sunday. Today. Anything else? I did yesterday, I think, send the thing about the ASC review. You can do it if you like. With the, I think the actual one is, maybe it's tomorrow night, but you can do the recording. It's fine. All right, so we'll stop there. I did put the password on that announcement. It's beach days, capital B, no spaces. Okay, because this time you have to enter the password for the test. All right, we'll stop there. You guys have an awesome day. And I'll glance through these and see if there's any that I think I should do for you. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming, you guys. Bye. Thank you.